So you're thinking about buying some property in the Bellingham or the Point Roberts area, more specifically the Point Roberts area, and you're asking yourself, can I Airbnb a property if I buy it in Point Roberts, and what are the pros and cons? So I get that question a lot, and we are going to actually talk with someone who has an Airbnb property here in the Point Roberts area. She's going to show you around her property, tell you all the good and the bad, the pros and the cons, and let you know her experiences so that you can find out if you are interested in buying an Airbnb in the Point Roberts area. You're not going to want to miss it, so let's get after it right now. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about eating, sleeping, playing, working, as well as the good and bad about living in Bellingham, Washington and the surrounding areas, then subscribe below and tap the bell icon for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market and things to do in the Bellingham and Greater Bellingham area. My name is Dale Serbisek and I'm with the Living in Bellingham, Washington team, and every single day we get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're thinking of moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. We'd be happy to help you make that smooth move to the Bellingham, Washington and greater area. So right now I'm at Lily Point on the southeast corner of Point Roberts. And most people, if you don't live in the area, have never heard of Point Roberts. And technically it is called a pen enclave. And it basically means that if you're coming up I-5 through Whatcom County and you get to the Canadian border, you cross into Canada and you drive for about a half hour. Then you come back across another border crossing on a little peninsula that juts just south of the 49th parallel, which, as many of you know, is the border between Canada and the United States. And there's a little 4 to 5 square mile area on the southern tip of this peninsula, and it's called Point Roberts. It's not actually a town, but it's part of Whatcom County, and it feels like you're stepping back 50, 60, 70 years in time. It's a beautiful little community, tons of beach access, tons of great parks, a lot of houses actually. A lot of people don't live here full time, and of course there's a lot of dual citizens who are citizens of both Canada and the United States, but it is quite the place, and I'm definitely gonna share a lot of that with you. So stay tuned for more great footage here in the Point Roberts area.
Welcome to our Airbnb. Let me show you around. This is the great room, and it's an amazing space where everybody can gather. We have a lot of family gatherings here, and you can be cooking in the kitchen while you're talking to someone here, and someone can even be playing the piano, entertaining you. This house was built actually by my dad, and he put in a lot of very interesting details like the 3-tiered roof, extra large skylights and windows, pine on the ceilings, cherry on the floors. Yeah, so it's got all these little cool things that we just love. The other thing we really love about this space is that there's a ton of light. There's 2 massive skylights here. There's another 2 skylights right above the kitchen, so you have a bright kitchen. And then there's this basically wall of windows. It gets so bright actually that sometimes we have to close the shade. The blinds go from the top down, but they also go from the bottom up. Right. So at night, if you want to have privacy, you can put them from the bottom up and then you can still see them in light. We have a gas fireplace, which is really cozy and nice in the summer. I mean in the winter. The Wi-Fi here is good enough to stream all kinds of movies, so you get all of the channels that you want. And the stove the range is gas, and everything else is electric. And then out here, we have this massive deck and amazing view. So that's Boundary Bay, as you can see, and this is just a great space. The sun rises right over there, and in the mornings I do my yoga here, in the afternoons we lounge, and then oftentimes we'll eat outside. Oh, wait. Yeah, it stays cool. Yeah, no, I love how there's not, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, and bugs. Yeah, bugs is a problem, mosquitoes. Oh, right, exactly. I love this island. Just the size and the shape of this island. It also has all this storage here, and it's just really accessible. And we get together, we often have intergenerational family gatherings. So you have kids, you have adults, you have grandparents. And so when the kids were little, we had you know, a drawer here with all the kids stuff so they could reach it. And there's even a separate table for children so they can kind of independently handle their stuff and enjoy everybody's company while having kind of their own space. So it's really, this house is really designed for intergenerational family gatherings. And actually we tend to get three or four types of people wanting to Airbnb it. One is multiple family gatherings. Because it's a big house, it's 4,000 square feet and has 6 bedrooms, so multiple families come at the same time and multiple generations within that. And then the second is retreats of like friend groups, boards, art groups, you know, that want to just kind of gather for a few days or a week or something and chill. And there's downstairs there's a dedicated space that's an office. So it's got a printer and all of that. And then the last group is people who are nature lovers. That's another one. And then another one is companies who are doing some work on the point and they need a place to house their people. It's got a lot of bedrooms, and so workers don't have to like stay in the same room. They can each have their own space.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can see it being a good, like a little mini retreat for some creative collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the bedrooms right in the front, and you can see there's a couple of big windows there, and French doors. Then we have the master bedroom here with its own walk-in closet and big windows, a bathroom with a soaker tub, and all the showers in the house are steam showers, all 3 of them. Another bedroom here. We wanted to do configurations with different beds, so that's a king bed in the master, and then here you have 2 singles. Because sometimes when people get together, like 2 kids want to sleep together, and so we tried to design it so that it would accommodate different kind of sleeping arrangements. So this is kind of some of the artwork. This is actually mother of pearl inlaid. It's from Vietnam. It's actually from my grandparents, and it's just a beautiful piece of art. My daughter loved horses. That's why you see kind of the horse theme in here. So this is another room. It's got a big window. This was my son's room. He loved geckos. So therefore the geckos, those are actually from Indonesia. Every room has its own large closet and lots of light. And then here we have the laundry, washer dryer, lots of space to do whatever you need to do with your clothes, and then that's the doorway into a 2-car garage. This is the bathroom for these bedrooms here. Again, another steam shower with the granite seat, granite countertops, double sink, lots of space. So down here we have this whole other suite basically. It's got its own kitchen, living area, TV, and bathroom and bedrooms. There's 2 bedrooms down here. It's a full kitchen. Another bedroom. This is the bedroom that has the office. So that's where this is the best Wi-Fi signal in the whole house. So when my husband doesn't even work, he sits there, and printer, laminator, everything you need in order to get your work done. Another large bedroom with different kind of sleeping arrangements. This is a queen and a single bed, and this dresser actually came from Indonesia. A lot of our furniture came from Indonesia when we first moved overseas, and then we brought it back here. And so the house has a little character, like this day bed here as well. This is an Indonesian day bed. Then downstairs bathroom has a large soaker tub, granite counters, and then another steam shower.
How did you learn about Point Roberts, and then what made you interested and draw you into Point Roberts to eventually buy a property and build a place here?
Okay. Um, well, I'm from British Columbia, so I grew up on the Canadian side, way up north, and went to UBC. And so I'm familiar with the whole Lower Mainland area. But then I married an American, and so we were actually going to be moving overseas and wanted a place in the U.S. where our kids could come back to and grow up with their cousins who are all Canadians. They're both dual. I'm dual. My husband's American. And so we were looking at Point Roberts because it's this really unique spot where you can do that, right? And so we bought it. We loved it. As soon as you cross the border, you just feel like you've gone back 50 years, and it's like going back in time. You know, there's no street lights. There's huge lots. There's tons of nature and trees, and I loved that growing up in the northern part of British Columbia. It kind of reminded me of that. And so we found a lot. We built a house, and we've been coming back here basically for the last 18 years. And our kids have, in fact, grown up with their cousins on the Canadian side. And so the house has really served its purpose of being this spot that we could return to, be in nature, be in this beautiful bay. And, you know, in the summer, it's really, really magical here because you see eagles training their young to fly. You see thousands of crabs, you know, scurrying to the beach. You see pods of whales migrating past Lighthouse Park. It's just a really unique nature haven in the midst of, you know, very close to the city.
What about, I know that it's called Maple Beach, right? So you're pretty close to Maple Beach, just
Right.
I mean, a couple blocks away.
Yeah.
So is it pretty easy to walk down there, and do you spend much time down there?
Yeah, Maple Beach, there's several beaches in Point Roberts because it's a tip of a peninsula, so there's water on three sides. The closest beach to us is Maple Beach, which is basically the most, I would say, family-friendly beach because it has this massive tidal flat that goes out several hundred meters, and it has some of the world's best kite surfing. It's got all kinds of things you can discover and play in there. It's about an 8-minute walk, so we go down there pretty much every day, and it's a nice boardwalk. Our kids love playing down there, and you can paddle board and do all kinds of water sports at Maple Beach.
Do they allow, do they have any fire pits? Can people ever have fire to light?
It depends on what's going on, like with the whole point. Sometimes when you get across the border, there's a sign, I think, from the fire department that notifies you as to what the burn ban is. Yeah. Right now, I would say that it's probably pretty high fire risk because it's been pretty dry. So you can't have fires there now, but if it was low, then yeah, I think you could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. And what about, I don't know if you know anything about this, but
What type of emergency service? Like if you needed to call a fire department or an ambulance or the police, because this is only 4 square miles,
Right.
and it's got Canada. It's this little peninsula. So
Yeah.
where would you get those services from?
Well, the fire department is actually just around the corner. It's like basically 1 block away, and they have a full service fire department with all the trucks and everything.
EMT.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. And I think the sheriff is also housed there as well. It's this massive structure that you see when you drive down Benson Road. So it has its own kind of services. You're not waiting for people to come from Blaine, basically.
And I suppose too, I mean, it's something where a big enough emergency, I'm sure even they have a system where the border patrol, their law enforcement, if they needed to send someone in an emergency or something, they probably.
I guess so. We've never really had to use it. No, touch wood.
I mean, it's such a
So,
safe place, I'm
yeah.
sure. But I know that's a question I've had people ask me that have
Right.
been interested is, what about the services? Which I guess brings up another good question would be, I know you didn't live here full time and have kids.
Right.
Is there a school?
There's an elementary school, and I forget which grade it goes up to, maybe grade 5. I can't remember exactly. But once kids get to a certain age, they need to be bused to Blaine. And so that's quite a lot. You have to cross 2 borders to get there and then 2 borders to get back. And that's about an hour each way, I think. So people do it for the lifestyle, I guess. And there is that service, but it's definitely something to consider if you have kids who are in middle school or high school.
Well, so tell me a little bit about, like a lot of people will ask, well, what are the pros and cons? And if you might think of it in terms of like, what are the top 3 things that you like, to
Yeah.
be concise, and then maybe the 3 things that aren't necessarily deal breakers, but they're, like you mentioned, if you have a child that's in middle school, they've got to cross 4 borders every day to get to and from school. I mean, that's an example, right?
Exactly.
So what are maybe the top 3 pros?
The top 3 pros, I would say, and I'm just looking out at the view here, is the ocean and the nature for sure. I mean, the water and then the land, I would say, are the top 2, right? Because you're surrounded by water. There's just so much of ocean sports and beautiful views. To have, one of the things we love to do is go down to Maple Beach at low tide, go wading into the tide pools, and you see the light glistening off the water, and then you see the snow-capped peak of Mount Baker in the background. And so it's just this, you're seeing this. It's very rare to be able to see ocean and then like snow-capped mountain.
It's a contrast.
It's just amazing. It's an incredible sight. And then on land, there's Lily Point, which is one of my favorite places here in Point Roberts. It's a protected park, and at the south end of Point Roberts, and Lighthouse Park as well. And you can catch the sunset at Lighthouse Park. We get the sunrise here, and so we often go there. And there's just this beautiful driftwood, beach that you can just walk around. I love the fact that it's very rustic. And yeah.
And so back to Lily Point, is that where there's like some tall cliffs to
Yes.
go down? And how
Yes.
accessible are those to people? Like if someone wanted to go, can you park over there? And are
Yes.
there walking areas to get
Yes,
to it?
exactly.
So years ago, there was just a trail, and you kind of had to shimmy down this sort of path. But I think, I forget which organization, maybe it was Conservation International or something. They purchased the land and they turned it into a very accessible park. So there's parking, there's a bathroom, there's a loop trail, then there's a very good trail for people of any age with steps and wide gravel that goes all the way down, kind of switchbacks all the way down to the bottom. And then when you get down at the bottom, there's a rope swing, there's fire pits, and there's just a lot of driftwood. And
What kind of, I mean, do you feel like that if you wanted to go out to eat and go to a restaurant, I'm assuming there aren't a lot of restaurants in the area, but are there some that are particularly good or maybe a favorite, or do you eat out much?
we tend to cook a lot here. There's one massive grocery store called the Marketplace, and you can get pretty much everything there. And we have a nice space here to cook, so we like doing that. There's a cafe that we like to go and get, coffee and a muffin, and it's near Lighthouse Park. And there are some restaurants. There's a restaurant at the marina. There's a couple of others, I think, at the bar on the other side, Kaniski's. But we don't usually eat out that much. If we're going to eat out, we would go across to Tawasin because there's a lot more variety of restaurants. And the thing is, with a Nexus card, it's easy to cross the border and you don't wait in lines.
So
Yeah, that
why
brings,
not?
and that brings up another good thing maybe to talk on is, I mean, we're in Point Roberts here, which does feel like you've gone back in time 50, 60, 70 years, small town. But yet when you cross the border up into Canada and you're in the town of Sawasan,
yeah.
all of a sudden it's not a metropolitan like Vancouver, but it's got everything you're going to need.
Exactly.
All the grocery stores, restaurants, gas, probably Home Depot.
Yes.
Everything
yeah.
you're going to need is just right across the border.
Plus, there's that massive mall that they just built, Sawasan Mills. It's on the way to the ferry. That's the other thing that's really close by is the ferry terminal, where you can get to all the Gulf Islands. You can get to Vancouver Island And for Vancouver, there's only 2 ferry terminals, right? There's one in Tsawwassen, and then there's one in north of Vancouver, Horseshoe Bay. And so to be close to the ferry it just allows you that access to everywhere. And because of the Tsawwassen Mills Mall, which I think only opened maybe 5 years ago, but really you have like every store you could possibly imagine.
And if I'm not mistaken, even from the ferry terminal, you can get to Victoria,
Yes.
which is another
Yes.
pretty popular place.
Exactly. Yeah, so Vancouver Island is that big island off the coast of BC, and Victoria is the city at the bottom of it. Everyone calls it Victoria Island, but it's actually Vancouver Island, and Victoria's on it, and Victoria is the capital of British Columbia.
I remember when I first moved to Bellingham 24 years ago, and for my first anniversary, we went to Victoria. There was a passenger ferry that left Bellingham from the Fairhaven area. And I remember I was quite shocked to look at a map and see that Victoria was actually further south than Bellingham, which was unusual when you look at the latitude.
Right.
A lot of people don't quite realize that there are a lot of portions that dip down further.
Yes, we have that map above the fireplace there that kind of shows it.
Sure.
But it is this kind of weird, configured. I guess they wanted to dip down so that they caught the whole of the island and didn't cut off the island.
Well, you'd think they would have done that place too, right?
Well,
there's even actually
Paris.
Did we talk on the phone yesterday about how I've heard that they're probably just rumors and it's nothing that will ever happen, but there's people who have like proposed that Canada buy.
Yes, especially during COVID, I think, because it was shut and it was impossible to get across the border unless you had some kind of special dispensation. And so it turned into a bit of a ghost town during COVID. Yeah, it was hard for people to get access.
Yeah.
Unless you had a boat, then you could boat to Birch Bay.
There were a couple, I think Tuesdays and Thursdays, supposedly in the morning and the evening, there was
A ferry.
a boat from Bellingham here.
Yeah.
But if you came in the morning, you had to stay all day.
Yeah, there was a ferry for a bit, but then I think it didn't get enough traffic. It wasn't economical, and it didn't really last.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
Big deal.
And there is actually a little airstrip.
Yeah, there is an airstrip. You can fly in. I've never done it, but it's down by Lighthouse Park. So if you have, I think, like a single engine plane or, small plane, then obviously you can't land a big plane there, but yeah.
So why don't you then talk about, what are some of the cons about having a place in Point Roberts?
Well, I guess some of the cons are depending on if you like serenity, Point Roberts is a great place to come. If you want like a bustling nightlife and lots of activity, then it's not the place to come. And so if you have teenagers, for example, they're kind of like, oh, there's nothing to do. But that for us, that's kind of the whole draw, is that you're in nature and then you do things, you go out and watch the stars. You tent under the moonlight. So you do different kinds of things, and there's lots of places to camp, even in Point Roberts. So,
so if I'm hearing you correctly, it's almost like sometimes
it's very
cons
quiet.
could be the pros.
Yeah, I mean, it's very quiet. Like people don't even leave their house lights on because they want to respect the neighbors. They want to respect light pollution, and people just like to come and watch the stars. You can see all the stars because there's no lights. There's no street lights. People don't leave their lights on at night. And so and it's quiet, right? There's no traffic sound because there's not that many cars, and there's just not that many people. So it could get a little eerie or spooky, like, if it's in the winter or something like that. But I personally love it. So
is the border across here in Point Roberts to Canada, is it open 24 hours a day, or does it close like at midnight or 1 o'clock?
The border is open 24 hours. The Nexus lane is not open 24 hours. They have certain hours. I forget what it is. It might be like 9 till 9 in the summer, and then 9 till 7 or something the rest of the year.
I suppose if it's the middle of the night, it's probably not going to be a big line anyway.
No,
Nexus isn't.
exactly. Yeah. yeah, the Nexus line is really, really nice, especially in the summer. That's the only time really that the lines get really. In the rest of the year, there aren't as many people here, but in the summer, there are a lot of homes owned by Canadians, and they come on vacation here in the summer, so the population kind of balloons out.
I noticed even today when I came across, being a Sunday, and I was coming across around, what was it, 1 or 2, that it was longer. The regular line, the non-Nexus line, was longer than I'd ever seen it. But of course, I have never come here on a Sunday in the middle of the summer.
On the busiest weekend, yeah. It's also BC Day weekend.
Yeah, so it's a holiday weekend.
It's a holiday weekend, yeah.
Which that makes sense.
But that's why you're really glad to have a Nexus card, because you just zip down that other line past everybody who's waiting, in the regular line.
Right. And for those that don't, because I know a lot of people are going to be, what's a Nexus card? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but a Nexus card is available to residents of states in the United States that are along either the Canadian or Mexico border. And then Canadians can get it too, right?
Yeah. I don't think you actually have to be along the border. I think, no. It's very similar to Global Entry. But it's just between Canada, US, and then Mexico.
I think Mexico too.
Yeah. And we use it at air entry as well as land entry. And so for us, it kind of, I think they bundled it together now, Nexus and Global Entry, because we have the same card we use for both.
I see. Yeah, and I know with domestic flights, you get automatic TSA. So there's a fast line.
TSA pre-clearance. And then when you come in, you have special lanes through customs, and you don't have to wait in the line. So it's well worth the whatever $80 it costs for a 5-year card.
And everyone, if you do have it, everyone in the car has to have it.
Everyone in the car has to have it.
It can't just be the driver.
No, it has to be everyone in the car. So having an Airbnb in Point Roberts, I guess the great thing about it is that it made us fix up the house to a higher standard, and now we enjoy it more too. And the great thing about Airbnb is that we can still use it at the same time that it's being used by other people. Like not the exact same time, but obviously it's not. You're
able to supplement your time. Like if you're not here, you can rent it out and get some extra money.
Exactly. And it is a unique little spot that's so, so beautiful. And so you get people just liking the uniqueness of it. And that's kind of a nice thing. The con is that a lot of people know about Point Roberts, and so there's not a huge amount of traffic at the moment for Airbnb. It's not like you're downtown Vancouver and you're just cycling people in and out.
Well, I think, and another thing too, I would imagine, is because not a lot of people are familiar with Point Roberts and not understanding exactly how it works, they I think through videos like this and different types of ways of getting information out and educating people about Point Roberts, that could probably change in the near future.
Yeah.
As more and more people are watching online videos and learning about things. And also, I think people, one of the things I've noticed is that people oftentimes are looking for alternatives to the typical places that they would otherwise go.
Right.
So I think that's one thing that Point Roberts has going for it as well.
Definitely. If you want to feel like you're on an island, but not take a ferry, come to Point Roberts.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about some accessibility of the beaches. So there's Maple Beach, there's Lighthouse Park, there's Lily Point, I believe. If I'm walking along, or someone's walking along the beach, let's say, and it becomes obvious that it's not part of the main park, and they look up and they see some houses that appear maybe they're waterfront, am I able to walk on the beach, or am I trespassing on their property by just walking on the beach?
That's a great question. So between Maple Beach and Lily Point, it's all beach, and then the houses are up on the cliffs. So that's all public land. And you really don't see a lot of people there. That's a wonderful walk. If you continue around Lily Point and you go on the South Beach, then you get into these houses that are right on the beach. I believe they own from the high tide line up. So I'm not 100% sure on that. But if you go at low tide, which you would need to do to get around there anyways, you're walking on public land. And I see a lot of people doing that all the time. So I'm not exact. I haven't looked up the law, but everybody does it. So
Yeah, well, I asked that question with the idea that it'll be on the phone, but I feel like I know the answer to that.
Okay.
I didn't look it up legally, but I've talked to a number of different realtors, like especially that one I told you that grew up here. And she said that while, like you described, some of these owners will own up to the average high tide mark or something like that, that there's no law. Let me rephrase this. There's nothing that can prevent someone from walking across the beach. That what they can't do is like stop there, set up picnics, and hang out there all day long.
Right.
So they can beach comb. That's the term.
Right.
They can walk back and forth. You just can't spend all day right there in front of their house.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I see people doing that, walking, around. So you can kind of walk around, the point and back, which is a really nice walk.
And as far as like cell service and internet service, if someone were to be staying here at AirBNB, how is that? Is it pretty reliable?
So you can get, the provider for internet is Would Be Telecom, and they wire internet to the house. So you have to get it wired in. We have really good internet here. It's wired in. And then we have a router system that, have these nodes, like a spider network, and it sends it all over the property. So our internet is good enough to stream movies. I have T-Mobile, and my cell service is pretty good. It depends which carrier you have. It can be a little bit spotty at certain points, places on the point. It just depends. But
I think most people's phones now, carriers have an option that can be enabled where you can turn on where all of a sudden where it uses the Wi-Fi signal through the network. So you don't need that cell tower signal as long as you have a good strong.
As long as you have Wi-Fi. Yeah. Wi-Fi is pretty good. It's not quite as fast as, it's not the highest speed. You can get a higher speed connection, then you pay more money. So they're now trying to bring more high speed options for people.
Yeah.
Because there are some people who actually work in the U.S. here, and then or work for U.S. companies, and then live in Canada, and they commute to Point Roberts instead of having to go through the Peace Arch border.
If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about eating, sleeping, playing, working, as well as the good and bad about living in Bellingham, Washington, then subscribe below and tap the bell icon for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market here in Bellingham and surrounding areas. My name is Dale Serbasek, and I'm with the Living in Bellingham, Washington team, and every single day we get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're thinking of moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Info's in the description below. We'll be happy to help you make that smooth move to the Bellingham, Washington area. And until next time, I hope to see you around town.